Thanks, Aaron, and thanks to Broken Sleep, to all the team at Broken Sleep, all of you in the audience, and all the other wonderful poets who have made being last on more of a burden, as you've all been brilliant, and I'm not sure how to follow you all. I just off the bat, I would really like to thank Kirsten Sutherland and Andrea Brady of Buck Press, who took a chance on me when I was 25 and didn't know what I was doing, and to Broken Sleep for helping, you know, with this expanded edition, but also to Kashif Sharma Patel and Lisa Jesk, who wrote such wonderful forward and afterward, respectively, such wonderful responses to this work. I didn't know that's what I was talking about, but now I do, which is great. I'm going to read from the new section, which is also called Against the Frame, but has a strike through, so it's under erasure. So yeah, I'll get into it. Diversification compressed me into fungible tokens. How much milk from the moose can be drawn? No one knows. But it's always worth the gamble. Can't predict the end of whiteness. It's secateurs. Frame could mean square, could be anything that turns subject to object, that takes out my canine, sets dogs on me in a garden where I'm not allowed on the grass, where we aren't allowed to walk on the grass together. Wrecked by alienation, turned into the lock. Repression comes after each microaggression. Like, what even is that? Why scale it down? Because when I churn it back up, I'm wounded in a place no knife could reach. You say hard to reach, like you're happy if I spoke only about love, care, this abstract thing everyone else is calling community. I want to reach parallel, oblique, pull the frame down just to acknowledge it is there, a structure, a perception. I woke up in dysautonomia. I stand up crepuscular and fall into October's shadow, resting my tryst with now. Naturally, I'm not what you thought. After the violence of a rhomboid glare, all it meant was a defense with identikits. That was the first movement in the ordo-liberal counter-revolution. Back into a self to make a position independent, a branch on the ground, dank with rot, lonely. I want to end identity. Because diaspora poets were never the subject anyway. Identity makes an object out of poems, and progressive politics never challenges or raises the idiolect of moral purity. What might happen if form takes the subject's role and a poet's life is kept away from the reader, just so he might be on the same flat ground of criticism? It would be nice to be treated like you do yourself. The descent is slow to fascism, but quickens with apathy and lack thereof of dissent, of thought to flow unobstructed by nostalgia and its pathetic war on the future. If, like offshored souls gathered into secure containers, the envelope of dim light trotting over here and over there, doesn't it just feel envious of the spirit on a picket line, speakerphonic, megasonic? I want to shout at you and your likeness framed in liquid crystal. This is a manifesto for hope and giving, that I might find better expression in we. The move to tout le monde has been stalled in a backyard by a place where food is handed out as credit. That, what financial violence entails in a debt we can't be forgiven for. It is the world in trillions of microcurrencies. I'm not one for having to delimit the land backs might stroke forth into a new curvature. Could it not be made possible again to begin the day as each one was fresh after a storm? I'll pick up the litter on the road. After all, isn't that what the day after revolution has become? Asked to be made transparent in the accounts, run down on the spread, a sheet of blackened ice on nubuck from sail, trickle down, tricolor, triculture. I'm not even thinking what comes to the pagination, just the extra concern I have for you. But this is fucked you up. Lamentations of pre-postural pop. Fear is that overdone corner of a sigh, a recommendation for closed form and ease of recognition. I can't behave the way you want me to. What is public here is euphemism for lewd. Surely it makes sense. And there is an account for that in the city, the defense might say. Innocent until proven guilty, but guilt is lack and lack is wealth's curse. Riot shields around an oxbow lake. It dared to stand apart and dwell with water's collection. Viscounts of doom reporting on the terrific reel of uncommonality, the aesthesiological milieu of rhizomatic mangoes, universal machinations of to just be nice to everyone. I want to tell you that it is not necessary for you to write a book on it. The mood is in the air, as palpable as bad breath. Bad poetry, bad diaspora poetry, is exhumed as a fresh response to shit that we've been wading through since the 16th century. I'm still very tired, and no amount of cooking recipes masquerading as verse will rectify structural issues like our search for a constitution. I want to reach a hand out to my enemies and ask them to learn with me how the otherwise of being raced is internalizing race as a measure of our value, which we rescript as culture, heritage, ethnicity. I don't want those limits any longer. Calling me a person of color euphemistically just says colored, politically correct, bland fanatics of the creative industries. They are happy to sell themselves and their families for the prestige of imagery and fame. And if all you do with this critique is shame it from coming from a man of color, then we've really got a lot of learning to do, because I never heard the phrase identity political poet until you deemed it necessary to write a blog about it. And now we're repeating ourselves. And now we're inframing ourselves through a gaze you call white, but legitimize every time you write. Race, given too much chronology, geochronology, cytochronology, little said about relation to the sun. I was worried over the blackberry blossom too, as much as any exfoliant. But now the stratigraphy has me, and all that history sediments, not in the body, which is little more than food for worms, but in how things in themselves, the thing in and of itself, named at noon, noun, and all that falls off my tongue like an insult. I believe all of us have to come out of the other side of identity politics. That is what the road to freedom requires. But I won't apologize for pointing to the ground's uneven surface, like how your gait is a tide, how I want mine like a four-wheel left-hand drive. To get there, we need to let go of the idea that selling poetry as cultural commodity is full of feeling. You say a code switch, that what you've said, like, no, I'm in bed and I've read some things, periphysios, more time I'm just having it off in the grammar of loyalty, trying to not fall for anything, trying to stand up again and again. Whereupon a weapon that I never really forget, how I lost my eyes, how you punched me in New Addington, how each blow denied me breath, and in each knocked rib a lost friendship. So don't call it a bad break. Some of us have gaping wounds that won't find closure, and they'll use the word cancel when a retreat from the public sounds idyllic. So we turned ascetic and acerbic, full of the residue of the day in spring. It's time to sort it, what attention is, when we've lost historic cities to traffic development. What domain is there where all we have is a boiling hot plasticity? You want to incorporate me into what exactly? Assimilation, toleration, the gelatinous, moribund, locomotive narcissism of belonging. It is sticky and disgusting. Ain't no tribe, no ethnicity, no custom that could classify me. I'm not, with solemn reflection, just what I saw at the river's edge was sly civility, shy mimicry, liminal perversions of potentia that I couldn't hold in anymore. Then I kept you out now. but to rest, or to say it rests on a long, long song carried in the imagination, a flight from, a fright of. Sovereignty is not the savior, and no complex of needing to be saved. How the dates lined up in binary, a contradiction of the march into a standstill. Our rebellion was a guided tour of a park in the city, and I stood on any bench, looked up in the rain. It was clear as any day. The hounds of blood snap at my elbows, gurgling and salivating, edging out. We lived happily during the war. Good for you to acknowledge that. I'm really pleased you survived and you bore witness. It has made a world of difference to my decimated articulation. So I'm working from a PDF, and I'm going to read another poem now. In the late winter's first blue sky, you approach me with the cruelty of good humor. That is how it seems. For how can a smile or a dimpled cheek not remind of loss? Rhetoric makes of language a tool to rouse or to manipulate, and poems flush in the house, haunting the huddled together with dandyish promises and Victorian values steadfast with work ethics. What was the best part of your week, you ask? What is the best part of any week? Made a feudal serfdom of all that constitutes pleasure, all that made life a possibility, a privilege, now trapped in the tomorrow that comes like a bell tolling for a crowd, but it clangs out the code we walk on, treading daffodils in dread by Windmill Row on Lower Marsh, wilting flowers, the romance conjured only when every breath breaks the law. I belch out slogans at a demonstration. The police drown them out with sirens. Those who resist are arrested. Those who resist are ignored by their elected representatives. Demands are met only partially or not at all. Invasions and violations happen daily, privately, behind the veil of digitality. First, they will come for your right to protest. Then they will come for your papers. Then they will come for your body. His prolixity merged with hyper-subtle undoings of world systems, the theory that I could be in any cafe, listening to the report, asking me to choose a side like a child. I want to be affirmative in sabotage of this whimsy that replaces the long movement of dialectics, sees how the past carries over the letter. Identity is a neurosis and imprisons the I in me, terrorizes what might seem like a heartbeat, loud in the inner ears, feels pathological, as if to have focus on the breath is itself the marker of illness, a scrambled synapse, the inability to have the body do what it should be doing in the background. The frame domesticates politics, where trauma is as ubiquitous as carbon, a year-long Olympics, and you came to me projecting difficulty onto me, kept me away from the future you swaddle. I need you to know everything is already difficult, but we can access it as easy as paper cuts. I dwell on softened sheets in search of form, or form's long song, which embraces me like fiber, optics for self-exoticized commodities, thinking of growth as a utopia of resistance, like a scout's badge on a long-sleeved shirt. How many times will I have to put up signs? I'm working here. Sadness, insurgent, mortiferous as Krang, talking with phengophobia, sharp dismissal of late style in early life, writing what I know as fascinorous notophily. Sometimes we just be talking, and that's okay to love, reckless satisfier made together as sound from the beginning. More time we lose directness of the image in the rush to get it out to page people. Bring me to the Brinjari, to turn metal back to mineral and let attunement leave with grass. I'll stop there. Thanks.